Welcome back to Why the Small Face podcast. This is where I'm talking about communicating with horses and how communicating with horses has impacted my ability and willingness to be reflective in how I communicate with humans. So, to catch you up, if you're new here, my husband and I bought a horse farm several months ago, and this is something that is a new experience for me. I'm not a horse person, I haven't been a horse person. I am someone who I would describe as a good partner and willingness to hop in on this adventure. This is something that's been near and dear to my husband's heart. So we went from owning one horse, boarding it 45 minutes away from our house, to selling our house, buying a farm, which is just down the road from our previous house, bringing our horse from the boarded property to our property, and we purchased five more. So we own six horses and we board four. So we essentially went from one horse off property to 10 horses on property overnight last fall. And here we are. So this space is where I like to talk about the play on the joke of horse walks into a bar and the bartender says, "Why the long face?" To me, that is just a perfect setup for, okay, there's some communication that's going to take part here. What is it that we can learn about each other? But, the horse never really responded to the human to say, "Why the small face?" So, in my experience, in trying to immerse myself into all things horses and horse communication, I find myself standing nose to nose with horses many times thinking, "Why the long face?" And I imagine they're thinking, "Why the small face?" So here we are, just sharing observations, insights about all things communication. How are these interactions with the horses on this property impacting the way that I interact with people, lead people, and do the work that I do outside of our horse farm? So, my work outside of the horse farm, I've been leading people and teams for over 25 years. I have been in the nonprofit world for most of that time, pretty much all of that time, and have lots of different experiences and have grown. I would say I'm not an expert. I don't do things perfectly. I make a lot of mistakes, but I am constantly evolving and willing to learn and do better by people and do better by making a good stamp everywhere that I go for impact. So that's what we're doing here. Today's topic is all about followership. So there's something different to think about. So when I say followership, I'm flipping the coin on all things leadership. In my world, there's so much chatter around leadership. Are you leading? Are you a boss? Handling your power and all of these different things? And person to person, that's challenging enough, which is why it requires so much communication, so much training, so much self-reflection to make sure that positions of power that many leaders hold are not used to hurt people, but it's used to further missions of the world. So again, I'm a nonprofit person. Nonprofit organizations exist primarily because they have a specific mission. Without the mission, there's no vision. Without the vision, there's no values. And without those things, there's no work to be done. So I'm taking that concept and bringing that into our horse farm and my relationship with these horses. I recognized very quickly that I need to be clear on what my mission is and making sure that with my mission, I have vision, and that vision is always connected to my values. So for Rick and I, we have a shared value system. We might differ in some things. We have a pretty much shared vision, which again might differ in some ways, but our mission is relatively clear. We're here because we love this property. We love these horses. We want to bring joy. We want to bring harvest. We want to bring abundance. We want to yield things that are positive in all of our interactions with our business, with our horses, and with the humans that we come in contact with. So knowing that this is resting on our shoulders as a partnership, we started off out of balance. Being out of balance doesn't mean that we are in disagreement, but it means we're out of balance. Rick has skills that I don't. I have skills that he doesn't. We have a lot of skills that we share, but we use them and use our strengths differently at different times to support each other through the work that we're doing every day. Most of the work that we're doing, I mean, we have the grunt work, which is picking the stalls, feeding the horses, turning them out. But so much more of what we're doing here is more about learning. We're learning what a hard winter is like in New York on a horse farm. We're learning what do we do when we start to run out of resources and the person who's been supplying us has nothing left. We're learning what to do when the electricity goes out and we have to figure out how are we getting through the next hour or 10 hours, depending on when that comes back on. So this is not something that we have mastered at all. And in the meantime, there's interacting with the horses daily, building those relationships, learning how to ride. If we're me, Rick already has it covered. I've been very skittish about learning how to ride and get back on. So there's all of these things happening at the same time that we're getting acclimated to our new house, at the same time that we continue to work our full-time jobs outside of the house, at the same time that we are just adjusting to all of the different things that come with this lifestyle. So, why I'm talking about followership today is that I've gone into my relationship with the horses. I've covered this before, wanting to really understand as much as I can possibly understand about them so that I can be more comfortable in being able to predict and observe and respond to whatever they want to throw out at me. What I've learned is how highly sensitive the horses are because they are sensory based thinkers. So even if I think I'm doing something that is calm, cool, and collected, if something's happening around us in the environment, they might be responsive to that thing. And if I'm in their space, I'm going to experience their response and their reaction. And I need to be grounded and not freaking out in my response. So if I have this very strong desire to be recognized by them as one of their leaders, I don't believe that we can wear the title of leader without also knowing what it is to be a good follower. So, if you haven't thought about followership as a thing, let's define what it is. Clearly, if you have a leader, leadership to me is someone who has understand the mission. There has to be a mission first. And to deliver the mission, there has to be vision. Otherwise, you're just roaming around hoping to accomplish something. And that is not an efficient or effective way to accomplish a mission. The vision supports the mission. And those two things are delivered by people or persons who have a set of values. So, anytime through the course of work, of leading people, leading systems, leading processes, any decision that needs to be made gets rooted into what is the mission and is it aligned with the vision and the values that have been predetermined and existing before we're facing that decision or that conflict or investment, whatever it might be. So, generally, if we think of a hierarchy of leadership, we think of managers and supervisors and bosses and all the terms that encompass leadership. And we tend to look at everyone else as this is your front line, this is your workforce, this is your teams that are doing the work. So the followership piece doesn't get talked about as much. The followership piece is so incredibly important because followers have to make a choice. So followers have to decide, I am going to support the leadership by following their guidance. I'm going to support the mission because I've aligned myself to that mission. I believe we have shared values. So the partnership of leaders and followers is having that level of understanding and making sure that in that agreement of understanding, the work goes forth and it's partnership. So when I think about that in terms of human to human interaction, anyone who is serving in a role of leadership is also serving in a role of followership whether it's acknowledged or not. And I think it's really important to spend time recognizing as a leader, how many times are we asking, am I a good leader? Am I doing these things? The question to ask is, am I being a good follower? And what do I mean by that? So, as a leader, my job is to give direction. My job is to communicate clearly. My job is to make sure that we don't veer from the mission. And my job is to make sure there is safety and that there is clarity, all of those things. Really good stewardship of resources. All of those things are super important to me. But I'm not the end all be all. There's no boss in terms of I'm creating all of the resources, I'm stewarding all of the resources. So I need to follow up and down and across. So following up, I have a board who is my boss. So I need to follow the guidance and direction of the board. I need to follow the guidance and the direction of all of the different contract requirements that provide the funds to deliver the service. I have to make sure that my team, my peers, anyone on the team has clear understanding of where we're going, what our priorities are, how we're doing the work, and how we're going to hold ourselves accountable. I need to follow down with listening to anyone in the downline who is sharing information back up to say, listen, this policy isn't working. Like the way that this is worded and trying to align with this is getting in the way of us being able to deliver X part of the job. I need to hear that feedback and follow that train of thought, follow the impact, and then work with people to then get more information and make changes. So the dance of following and leading is constantly going on. I think the danger of how we can interpret leadership is assuming that there's a position of power. And I don't want to say there's not a position of power in leadership, because there is. And we know that because it gets misused way more often than not. But if we are aware of every single person on the team has power, and the power is being heard, right? That's my power, is to share my voice and be heard. I encourage other people, if they're feeling powerless, let's embrace how powerful you are by sharing your voice and being heard, being valued, understanding your worth. To me, that's where power lives. With leadership, the difference when someone in the hierarchy is higher up, a chain of command, the difference is really the level of responsibility. So I encourage leaders as they're growing through, maybe going from promotion to promotion. I've seen people face plant thinking, oh, I just got promoted. I am now this level of leader. So I have to change myself into being power over and asserting my power. And it changes the relationship of who they are with themselves. And then it monkeys up who they are with everyone else. And it can go really off the rails really fast. So understanding that leading is understanding the responsibility and the level of responsibility, and staying self-aware that the dance of leading and following is constantly happening all day long. Anyone who's following has to be willing to receive direction. Anyone who's following has to be willing to be loyal to who they have decided to follow. Anyone who's leading has to be part of that team, use their power, which is their voice, their perspective, to share so that it can continue to influence the complete team in the environment of where the work is being done. So that's the world that I function in pretty much all of the time with my regular job. So here I am on the farm trying to pull some of that into how I interact with the horses, because it's important for me to be recognized as their leader. Otherwise, I'll get walked all over. And at the same time, I don't have the ability, nor do I want to walk into a barn and just start, yanking animals around like I'm this big, bossy, powerful human. That doesn't speak to who I am as a person. It also doesn't speak to the kind of barn we run. It doesn't speak to anything of how we operate. So finding that place that I'm true to myself without being a complete softie who will get walked all over. That's that is the journey that I'm on. That is the journey that I'm sharing with you. So, thinking about this concept of leading and following, when I watch and observe the horses, I'm constantly taking mental notes. It's what I do because it helps me get grounded in trying to predict and understand horse behavior. But when I'm interacting with them, I can almost feel like a switch that's clicking on and off that, okay, now I'm leading, now I'm following. Now I'm leading, now I'm following. So, an example of this would be when I am taking a ride on Maggie, I'm getting up on Maggie. I'm using my legs, my ankles, my hands, the reins. So I'm using lots of different methods of communication to ask her to go where I want her to go. So in one breath, I'm leading her because I'm giving her the direction. As I'm giving her direction, let's say that I use my ankles and I kick into her belly to go forward. If she responds in a way that I don't understand, I need to pay attention to that because then she's leading the dynamic then. She's going to lead me where I ask her to go. But in that experience of taking even a 5 minute ride, we're switching the leader and the follower many, many times. I'm taking notes in that. I know she's taking notes in that, where a more experienced rider probably gets on there and they are the leader through the experience. But we have to remember that the horse is leading us too. And we have to be willing to follow their lead figuratively and literally. Are they telling us anything like they might be in pain? Are they telling us that they are not well rested? Are they exhibiting signs that when we go back to the previous podcast of being on a scale from 1 to 10 with from calmness to excitability, are they at a 5? So if they're at a 5 and we need them at a 3, they are saying, I am telling you, and I'm leading this interaction right now to say, I'm not ready for this. We have to follow that lead, but then lead the horse to help get down to the level that we need. So the exchange is happening all the time, whether we recognize it or not. I might be deep in the weeds because I don't know how to be any different. It's just the way my brain works. So my desire and my drive to be 100% aware 100% of the time, I can't undo that. I don't think every human functions that way. So I'm going to venture to say that not every animal functions that way. And yet, at the same time, doing my research with animals, specifically horses, they might function that way all the time because they're reading their world based on right now, based on what they experience right now. It's not to say that their past doesn't influence how they're reading the world. So if they had been mistreated in the past and they have a memory sealed in, it is not unheard of that a horse might have been mistreated by, let's say, a man with a hat. That horse might have a negative reaction to a man with a hat for the rest of their life because they can't undo that imprinted memory. However, whether they've had that kind of history or not, what they will continue to do is respond to what is happening right now. Is there a paper bag flying by them? Because, horses sometimes feel like they're going to die because there's a paper bag flying around them. They get that nervous and hyper about it because it's a sensory thing. And the horse has to know 100% of the time, every minute of the day, has to know that it's fed, it's watered, and it is safe in their environment. So anything that threatens their safety is going to put them into a highly charged response. So, depending on their experience, depending on their age, depending on all of those things, their history of treatment will impact their response. But they are throwing those signs out constantly. And we need to honor that as a human who's trying to lead that part of the interaction with the horse. It, it, encourages me and it inspires me when I think about how much opportunity exists in just reflecting, observing, reflecting, and tweaking things a little bit. I don't know if you've ever struggled with trying to accomplish something, a particular task, whether it's at work or it's at home, but it's something that's so important to you. When we do that as humans, we tend to get into a space where we don't really want to be wrong. So, if we have that going on where we don't want to be wrong, we're also feeling the responsibility of leadership. We might miss the whole followership thing because we're so tunnel focused on I have to lead and I have to be right and I can't get distracted by anything. Think about that in relationship with how you would interact with a 1,200-pound animal. If I'm in that headspace and they're in the headspace of, I just need to be safe, I just need to be safe, I just need to be safe, and there's no reflection on who's leading and following in this engagement of communication, it could be a disaster. We can also over communicate by saying things that don't really get us anywhere. And I've seen this happen in the human to human experience, especially in leadership. How many times have we made mistakes like that? We think, well, if I talk for 20 minutes, then they'll understand. But if you could have said what you needed to say in 3 minutes, you probably didn't convey what people need to understand because it probably went in areas that made no sense. The same is true when we're interacting with the horse. Do I need to stand in front of this horse and give it a 20-minute dialogue on how I am preparing myself to put its bridle on and take it out to the arena? No, I think that would be probably confusing. Now, if I'm standing there for 20 minutes brushing it, talking to Maggie, brushing her, cleaning out her hooves, doing those things that she loves because it feels good, then taking her to the arena, that's different. So, in the way that I'm leading her is taking care of her needs and observing how she responds, and then leading her to accomplish the goal that I have in place. It's the same is true in the human interaction. This is why I love all things leadership, because it helps us reflect back on ourselves to say, am I in the headspace? Am I showing up the way that this person or this horse needs me to show up today? And if I'm not, I can make quick adjustments. We have the ability as humans to pivot pretty quickly. I don't know. I can't think of anyone who doesn't have resiliency, adaptability, flexibility, and the ability to just pivot, which is one of my favorite words. If you're a person like me who love the show Friends and pivot, that very fun experience of laughter around that whole thing, we need to be able to pivot quickly and readjust and get aligned with our mission. So if I get out of alignment, I'm leading Maggie, and let's say my value system is to always honor the horse, do no harm, push ourselves to the next level. We're not going to sit around and be complacent. We're not going to celebrate something that is mediocre. No, something that's huge to me to accomplish might be mediocre to someone else. So that's where the teamwork, the partnership, and the understanding comes into play. But when I say mediocrity, I mean we're not choosing to be excellent. So we don't celebrate that. Even if my goal is so minuscule to someone else and seems like it's nothing, if I'm doing it with excellence to get me closer to my goal, my team is going to understand that and they're going to celebrate that with me. And I'm going to honor that back and do the same for them. We do the exact same thing on the farm. So, at any rate, if I'm doing this with Maggie and I'm engaging with her and I'm doing this in a way that's aligned with our values, vision, and mission, and she's throwing off a signal or a sign to me, if I got really frustrated, let's say that I hadn't had breakfast, I didn't sleep well last night, I'm frustrated at three people, but this animal is the one in front of me right now. So if I'm trying to clean a hoof, which makes me nervous to begin with, and she won't cooperate, I have a very important choice to make. Do I take it out on her and say, oh my gosh, you're giving me such a hard time, and I don't understand why you do this, and start making it all about her problem? No, that's so gross and it feels terrible. I would have to say, who's leading and who's following, and what kind of leader am I? What kind of follower am I? If I'm not an excellent follower, the same way I strive to be an excellent leader, I'm not doing anyone any justice. So I would have to sit with my frustration for a minute, take a breath, and say, you know what, Maggie? I don't know that I'm ready to do this today. I'm tired. I'm not fed well. I've been working really hard. And today we might not be in the right headspace for this. So it gives me a minute to take a break and also communicate to her. I don't know what she would understand of that, but I bet you she'd feel the energy that I'm trying to work it out. I am trying to work it out and get myself right so that I can honor her and love her through this. When you have those interactions with people and horses, the energy changes and you can get back into alignment with whatever the goal is. There will be some days in the office and in the barn where doing that moment of self reflection will save the relationship and it will save the integrity of the leader. And it allows the leader to continue to grow in being a really good follower. It keeps harmony, it keeps peace, it keeps uh, a mutual level of respect and integrity alive in whoever you're in relationship with. So I would encourage you to think about, are you in a position of leadership? Are you in a position of followership? Have you put yourself in a bucket of one or the other? And I would ask you to think about mixing your buckets up. Take those two buckets and pour them into one. And that's really where all of us are. And then measure the level of responsibility that you're carrying in whatever partnership, whatever track you're on to accomplish a goal. That might help bring some clarity in terms of who is carrying the level of responsibility for leading, maybe more than following. But it's the responsibility only that really ranks differently. The power and control that you have in any situation of how you're interacting with the world is yours to embrace. It is yours to be empowered. We can't have the word empower if there is no power that exists in our space. How are you impacting the world? Is it in a way that is meaningful to you? And is it attached with your mission? And do you have a clear vision? And are those two things aligned with, do you plug them right back into your values, your value system? So I would ask you to sit with that for a little bit and bring that concept into your daily work. Bring that concept into your daily interactions. And if you've been in conflict somewhere with either a thing, like a process, or a person, I'm really going to encourage you to think about, how can I lead conflict resolution by recognizing my own ability and willingness to lead and follow in the same space as a dance with this other person or with this other process or with this other animal, and see what happens. Because I think if you can kind of exercise that muscle of flexibility and self awareness, you're going to see that you will be more effective in how you communicate. You will be more transformative in accomplishing your goal. Goals to me they're transactional. When we think about the transformation piece, it's about the impact of accomplishing that goal. So, what are your goals and what do you hope to impact by achieving that goal? Is it all tied back into your values, your vision, and your mission? And if not, go map it out for yourself. Those are not hard things to do. It's not easy to do, but it's not hard. It takes time and it takes thought. And when you do that, you will feel grounded in this wild world in a very different way. And this is really what it's all about for me, is how to lead myself and how to lead others so that we are grounded and we have clear vision and stability in our sphere of influence, however small or large that might be. When we're not walking in that lane, when we're not grooving in that space, we quickly flip over into feeling controlled, feeling frustrated, feeling powerless, and losing a lot of energy into things that are negative because they're things that we can't control. When we focus only on what we cannot control, oh my goodness, it can get depressing and it can invoke so much anxiety that it gets away from us. And we forget that, wait a minute, my words, my thoughts, my actions really do impact my own trajectory in how I'm going to function in the world and what kind of impact I will make. So I'll leave you with this. I'm so thankful and grateful that my crash course into trying to figure out how to interact with horses continues to illuminate back to me how I'm doing in the world and what do I need to improve upon? What do I need to forgive myself for? What do I need to give more grace for? And that bridge that exists between human to human and human to horse, it's not going away. It's beautiful. I love this bridge. I could hang out here all day long because there's a self discovery that I think the potential has been there the whole time, whether horses came into our life or not. But I love how I believe God is using this interaction with the horses and the provision of this land to help me grow in ways that I probably got a little stagnant and had some years of being exhausted, tired, burnt out, anxious, and depressed. So, coming out of those things and being able to do it in this way and use this platform to connect with other people around simple experiences here on the farm just warms my heart. So I hope that's been meaningful to you. And I hope you will take what we talked about today and apply it in your life and watch how you transform in ways and areas that are important to you so that you can impact and leave a positive imprint on the world. Before I leave you, you know I love to talk about what did I get from Boot Barn? What is in my repertoire from Boot Barn? So today it's the earrings. They have great accessories. Last episode, I had the headband on. Today it's about the cowboy way. There's a lot of turquoise in the cowboy way. None of the rest of me is looking cowboy today. That's okay. I love my cheetah print. It's winter time, so I've got my winter cheetah on. But I do love a little pop of color. So these turquoise earrings, they're awesome. They're wonderful. I have purchased many, many accessories from Boot Barn, and some of them I only wear to rodeos because I'm not wearing them to the office. These I could get away with. I could do church, I could do office, I can do groceries. Some of them are just way too much fun and way too specific for rodeo. So we save it for occasions like that. But I hope that you get yourself to a Boot Barn and enjoy the heck out of it the same way that I do. It's so much fun to shop there. Enjoy what you're doing in the world. Go out, be awesome, do great things, go make a difference in the world. So until next time, ask yourself, why the small face? Think of things differently and share your thoughts. Share what you're doing. Share what might have inspired you to go and do something different. Go be a breath of fresh air to someone who needs it. Until next time. See ya.